And welcome back to Quebec City, where we're trying to understand what happened here last night, the horror of what happened last night, and put it into some context and give us all something to think about in the days ahead. Joining us now, two very special guests who are going to try and help us do that. Sameer Zuberi organized the Montreal rally today, and Amira Elghawaby, Amira, the National Council of Canadian Muslims. Awfully cold here tonight in Quebec City, down in the deep minus teens. Let me get a sense from each of you, and perhaps Sameer, you could start with a sense of what you saw at the rallies you attended today.
Well, the Montreal rally was extremely well attended. The square near Park Metro was entirely full. The majority of people were not Muslim. About 80% were average Quebecer who came on out to show their support and solidarity with the victims and their families. It was extremely encouraging, as somebody who has organized within the Muslim community for many years, to see that level of support. And it really moved me personally, as many others who have been working on these issues for many years.
Amira, how about you?
Yes, Peter. So we were on Parliament Hill at the Centennial Flame, and we were actually joined by several cabinet ministers as well as the Governor General, and I'd say over 100 well-wishes supporters all gathered together. Sort of, you almost felt, our hearts were really united. It was actually a very special moment, because obviously we're all mourning. We're all just thinking about these 6 innocent victims who were at a place of worship and just senselessly gunned down. And seeing that sort of groundswell of support, and we know it was happening across Ottawa, was happening across the country, and to see our cabinet ministers, our elected officials come out, show the solidarity, to see average individuals who are out like you tonight, Peter, freezing cold, but so determined to make it so clear that we will not accept hatred in our communities, and we will do everything in our power to show a resolve that this is not going to define us.
Well, let me pick up on that point about what's defining us with you, Sameer, because I think we've all witnessed and talked about what seems like a growing intolerance in parts of the United States, in parts of Western Europe. How does Canada differ? Or are we different?
Well, I would say that we are not necessarily that different, because we aren't sealed off from the rest of the world. So the conversations that are happening within our country, within the province of Quebec, sometimes are pinning Muslims and minorities in a very bad position. Sometimes you'll have pundits or elected officials who will malign the Muslim community, who will speak in negative terms about the Muslim community. On the other hand, we also have a prime minister currently who is celebrating diversity. We have a premier in Quebec, Premier Couillard, who is also giving a nod to the contribution of Quebec Muslims. But we need to hear more of that from all parties and from all segments of Canadian and Quebec society.
Amira, you pick up on that same point for a moment and leave aside the politicians and the leaders. How about just ordinary people? How do we combat what seems to be, according to some, a growing intolerance?
Well, our organization actually does document hate crimes, hate incidents, as well as violations of human rights in workplaces, in educational settings right across the country on a regular weekly basis, unfortunately. We do receive reports of Canadian Muslims who feel that they've been discriminated against, and we provide support to them. And unfortunately, we have seen an increase in this sort of concern. Hate crimes in this country against Canadian Muslims are on the rise. We've seen a doubling in the past 3-year period. So definitely there is a phenomenon here that we cannot turn away from. We must confront. But by the same token, I think it is important to continuously sort of welcome the words of solidarity that we hear from fellow Canadians. I mean, we've got countless messages of support today, and I think that that must be what we sort of go forward with. But as I said, we do need to document what's happening, and we need people to report what's happening, and we need to find solutions collectively.
Sameer, last point goes to you, and just briefly, and I asked it earlier of the local MP. Are we who we think we are when we hear these wonderful things said about Canadians around the world, about how we're tolerant and we showcase our diversity, and then something like this happens? Are we who we think we are?
In some senses we are, but it's not across the board. And we had in Quebec the Charte de Valeurs, which was a promotion of an idea that maligned the Muslim community. It existed also in the previous government, where the previous government had certain pieces of legislation that they were proposing, which again ostracized the Muslim community. So on one hand, we have voices that are calling for unity and calling for the celebration of diversity. On the other, we aren't. But I would like to underscore the importance of this event and the way in which it'll help, hopefully, reorient the elected officials and the citizenry in order to talk about minorities in a positive way, talk about Muslims in a positive way, and celebrate the contributions of Canadian Muslims to Quebec and to the country.
Thank you both very much for your thoughts on this very difficult night. Thank you.